All of us love movies. But do you ever wonder what elevates certain movies to the status of favorites? For most of us, a favorite film is associated with where we were in our lives at the time we first saw it, and how it affected us personally in terms of our dreams and that specific film-going experience. But what makes a film so profound that it not only becomes our favorite, but remains our favorite film for years thereafter, ever working its magic on us despite the advancement of age and the onset of change in our lives? I was 7 years old when my brother Shane took me to see The Valley of Gwangi. I'm certain the only reason he took me was because Mom and Dad paid him to do so, but he was my big brother and I looked up to him and was proud to be with him. Plus, the movie was about cowboys in the Old West fighting dinosaurs. What was not to love for a boy of 7? I went to see Star Wars with my oldest brother Doug and his wife Karen. I was 14, and it was the first time in my life that I had witnessed a movie become an event right before my eyes. Lines formed around the block, and we had to fight to find 3 seats together. But when the theater darkened and the music began, I knew I was witnessing something special. It was December 1978, and I went to see Superman the movie with my mom and dad. These were troubling times for us. My relationship with my parents was strained, and we didn't have much to talk about on the ride over. But for 2.5 hours in a darkened theater, we made a tenuous connection over the shared belief that a man could fly. I was introduced to Indiana Jones 2 weeks after my 18th birthday, 1 week after I graduated from high school. I had my own car, and I was now able to drive to Wichita on my own to see a movie. And I think I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark 17 times in the summer of 1981. My favorite film has been called The Ultimate Guy Movie, but there are no explosions, no guns, no martial arts, no scantily clad Bond girls, and no heroes with superpowers. It has been called the ultimate sports movie, but there's no plucky underdog team winning the championship on a last-second touchdown or walk-off home run. It is a film beloved by men of all walks of life. It gives these men a sense of universal connection, and at the same time it is one of the few films that consistently makes these grown men cry. Like most of these men, I have loved this film for 20 years, and whenever I watch it, it never fails to work its magic. Every man who loves this film has a personal story about it. This story is mine. Well, it's about 6:45 in the morning, and I'm driving north on Highway 81, heading up to see the movie side of where the Field of Dreams was shot. Field of Dreams is my favorite movie. Been wanting to do this for a long time. Go see the Field of Dreams field. I've equated this to a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage, by definition, is a long journey of great moral significance to a shrine of importance to one's faith and beliefs. Famous pilgrimage destinations include Mecca, the Wailing Wall, Lhasa, traditional home of the Dalai Lama, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Pilgrims of all faiths have been traveling to sites like these for hundreds of years as a sign of their devotion to a God of their understanding. So how can I even begin to compare such holy journeys to an 8-hour drive to Dyersville, Iowa? Let's back up a minute to the year I first saw Field of Dreams. It was the summer of 1989, and having missed the film in the theaters, I caught it on cable one evening because the girl I was dating had a crush on Kevin Costner. I can't say I was into Kevin Costner. As you can probably guess from this picture, my favorite movie at the time was Lethal Weapon, and my favorite actor was Mel Gibson. But I did watch Field of Dreams, and while it didn't make the most profound impression on me, I admit that I enjoyed it, even shed a tear or two, and when it was over I felt good for some inexplicable reason. Which is really strange, you see, because the two predominant entry points into the film for most men are baseball and the bond they have with their fathers. In 1989, I didn't like baseball, and I didn't have a bond with my father, so what was there for me to like about this film? That out there is my father's Field of Dreams. Here is where this is the first field where he played baseball. Every Sunday after church, the kids from the farmstead would come down here and they'd meet the Nixon boys from that homestead over there, and they would play baseball. Back in September of 2008, Dad came out here with my brothers and I, told some stories about the games they played, and then about 6 months later, we came out again and walked through the mud, and he showed me where the bases were, where first, second, third, and home plate were, and it was kind of fun. But from a very young age, baseball was a part of Dad's life, and then he when he was a teenager, he played for the City League in Belleville, and I believe he may have played when he came back from the war as well. I got a photo of him with my Uncle Vern. 1940, so Uncle Vern would have been 19 and Dad would have been 16 back when they played for Belleville's City League. And Dad tells the story about Uncle Vern at that little ball diamond where they played, once hitting a home run that hit the band shell. And at the time, that was like one of the longest home runs. I grew up with television, movie theater down the street, swimming pool, local swimming hole. So it's hard even for me to imagine a time when this field and the baseball game every Sunday was what the kids looked forward to every week. I think the crazy thing is that I didn't share my father's passion for baseball. My brothers, they played all kinds of sports. I didn't play sports. Part of it was this eye. I had no depth perception. I couldn't catch a ball because I couldn't judge how close it was. So I got popped a lot in the face as a kid, and as such I just hated sports because I couldn't catch a ball. So baseball wasn't even on my radar. Here's what's funny. Here's how far baseball was off my radar. In 1985, when the Royals won the World Series, they won the whole thing, I didn't know about it. I didn't learn about it. I didn't even know they were in the World Series. I didn't learn about it till the next morning. I was working the night shift at a 7-Eleven at a convenience store, and my boss called me at 4 in the morning and said, when the newspapers come in, grab up as many copies as you can because the Royals won the World Series. They're going to be the front page. Get the Kansas City Star. And I said, "Oh, the Royals? They're in the world. I didn't even know they were in the World Series. I didn't even know they were that good." In Terrence Mann's famous speech from Field of Dreams, he states, "This field, this game, it's part of our past. It reminds us of all that once was good and it could be again." That last sentence could easily describe my own family. My father and his 2 brothers, as well as the women they would one day marry, are part of what Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. The generation that survived the Great Depression and the Second World War and helped transform a careworn nation into the greatest country on the planet. Terrence Mann explains that America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. My indifference to baseball as a young man was symbolic of my indifference to my family. After graduation from high school, I spent a wasteful decade rejecting the values my parents had tried to instill in me. These were years of pleasure-seeking and self-gratification, and in the darkening shadow of the Cold War, my dependence on alcohol increased in my ongoing efforts to stave off terror and bewilderment. I may have claimed to love my parents, but I did not live as if I respected them, and I certainly did not honor all the work they had done to set me on the right course. But to paraphrase Terrence Mann, the one constant through all these years was baseball. These days, I tend to romanticize the past and oversimplify its problems, but I sometimes wonder if my life would have been different had I been born with two good eyes and thus able to catch a ball and throw it back, and maybe even participate in a game of baseball with all the other boys. This is not to say that baseball would without a doubt have saved me from my prodigal years, but as Jake Barnes says at the end of Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, isn't it pretty to think so? Well, it's almost 9 a.m. and I'm only as far as Belleville, Kansas, so miles to go before I sleep.
Shaver delivers, and a strike at the knees, 2-2. Now they've got the tying run on with nobody out here in the sixth. Jones, a little chopper, foul outside third. And Baltimore trailing at New York by a 3-1 count in the eighth. Andrew Jones stands in. He's hit into a double play and struck out. Swing and a miss. Strike one. Andrew Jones in last night's game went 2 for 4, including a
Standing
double.
here at the Visitor Center, roughly 20 miles into the great state of Iowa. We have about 225 miles left on this journey, but we're looking to get there hopefully by 4 o'clock.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Over to first, and Beckham is back. Throw was a little high. Beckham went back with a head-first dive. White Sox 1-on-1 out here for Konerko. Pitch outside. It gets by Kendall and goes to the screen. Up comes Alex Rios, who had a big night here last night. 3 for 4.
A little town called Stewart, which is west of Des Moines. I'm actually about 200 miles away right now. I thought I was 220 miles away 60 miles ago, but so I might not get there before it closes at 6. I might have to wait till morning to see the field.
Dusty Hughes, by the way, warming up down the Royals bullpen. Well, this is a big moment in the ball game. Hopped up foul, out of play down the first base side. Well back into the stands.
Well, I'm still 100 miles away. At least I'm pointed in the right direction. I'm on Highway 20, heading east. It's a long drive. For some reason, maybe it's the gloomy weather, the fact that it's raining, the fact that by the time I get there, it won't be, I had this nice image of seeing it, just as the sun was getting low, seeing the field. And now it's going to look like this outside, this gray, gloomy stuff. I'm starting to question, what do I really expect when I get there? Am I going just, do I expect something mystical? I got to thinking, do places have mystical properties? And I don't know what sort of mystique to expect about the field. I anticipate it to be a very positive, very good energy, but maybe there's no energy at all.
Strikes and a ground ball to Vilas. He's got it. Second base won. First base out. It was a high throw, but Butler able to pull it down and get the foot on the bag.
So here I am at the field, getting my ass wet on some beautiful green grass, and I think it's really crazy. I've been to plenty of movie sites. Heck, I grew up around the corner from a movie site. There's something special about this place. I can't put it into words right now, but maybe tonight at the hotel and tomorrow I'll find a way to do it. Well, here I am at the hotel in Dyersville. It's kind of a nice little town. They've got this really pretty basilica downtown. The Basilica of St. Francis Xavier. I think Xavier University was named for that saint. And it's kind of neat seeing this ornate basilica in this little downtown in Iowa. So that's kind of cool. I went downtown because some people out at the field suggested a restaurant down there, but it was closed, so I ended up going to Chad's Pizza. Also got a salad because I need to be getting some roughage. But I love this. Chad Pizza has their own bottled water. So we're gonna eat some pizza and we'll chat in a little bit. Well, it was pretty good pizza. Actually, it was really good pizza. Going to bed. I've got the 1995 ALDS Game 5 between the Yankees and the Mariners here on the iTunes. There are 3 major sporting events that I can honestly say changed my life. 2 of them were football games. The third was Game 5 of the 1995 ALDS between the Yankees and the Mariners. If you're not familiar or don't remember, this 5-game series, coming on the heels of a strike-shortened season, was one of the most exciting ever played, and Game 5 is widely considered to be one of the all-time baseball classics. The series opened in New York, where the Yankees took Game 1 by a score of 9-6, capped off by a 2-run homer by Ruben Sierra in the 7th inning. The following night, in the longest playoff game in history, the Yankees won Game 2 when Jim Leyritz hit a 2-run walk-off homer in the bottom of the 15th. With the Mariners only 1 game away from elimination, they came home to Seattle, needing to sweep the last 3 games to advance to the American League Championship Series. Game 3 was on a Friday night, and the Mariners kept their postseason alive with 4 straight RBI at-bats in the 6th, beating the Yankees 7-4.
And Charlton back with the 2-2 pitch, and it swung on and missed, and there will be a tomorrow as the Mariners knock off the New York Yankees 7-4.
The following night was a slugfest, with the Mariners beating the Yankees 11-8 and tying the series 2-2 in an evening highlighted by Edgar Martinez scoring 7 RBIs on 2 home runs.
And John Wetland one more time set, and here comes the 2-2 pitch to Edgar Martinez now, and the fastball swung on and hit the deep center field. Bernie Williams goes back, and it is get out the rye bread and the mustard this time, Grandma. It is a grand salami.
This led to a dramatic Game 5, an extra inning pitcher's duel with one of the most exciting finishes in the history of baseball. Trailing 5-4 in the bottom of the 11th, the Mariners had Joey Cora at third and Ken Griffey Jr. at second, setting up this thrilling at-bat by Edgar Martinez.
Right now, the Mariners looking for the tie. They would take a fly ball. They would love a base hit into the gap, and they could win it with Junior speed the stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on and lined down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my.
This iconic sports moment is known forever as the Double by Mariners fans, and it has not only been credited with getting the Mariners' approval to build Safeco Field, but also with keeping Major League Baseball in Seattle. This play is so important to Seattle baseball that the image of Griffey scoring the game-winning run is forever memorialized on one of the walls along Safeco's main concourse. But in my own life, the effects of this game were even more profound. For you see, the last 3 games of this series were the first baseball games I had ever sat down and watched, and I watched them with my father. I was all of 32 years old, and although I understood the basic mechanics of baseball, I was still ignorant enough that I had to ask my dad a lot of questions. Can you believe a 32-year-old man didn't know what a fielder's choice was or what was the ideal situation to bunt? Prior to watching these games with Dad, I had no idea that a sacrifice fly didn't affect the hitter's batting average, and I'd never seen a hit-and-run play to know what it was. And yet here I was, learning all of these things for the first time, not from the television, but from my father. I was getting a second chance to have that father-son baseball conversation that Dad and I should have had when I was 10 years old. Game 5 not only made me a baseball fan, it made me a Mariners fan as well. This proved to be fortuitous, because you see, when Edgar hit that double, somewhere in this section sat a beautiful girl who was just 1 week away from making a major move from Washington to Kansas. 1 year later, I would meet that beautiful girl, and a year after that, we would be married. So I guess in a way you could say that my fate was bound forever to that Game 5. After a brief introduction, Field of Dreams opens with a man named Ray standing alone in a cornfield. We have learned that he is a child of the 60s who grew up in the city and attended college at Berkeley, so farming is perhaps the last thing he should be doing. Most men, myself included, feel an immediate connection to Ray, understanding that isolation and the sense of regret that comes from making wrong choices. That was where I was in 1989 when I first saw Field of Dreams. Then Ray hears a voice that is later accompanied by a vision of a great baseball player, Shoeless Joe Jackson. The voice says, "If you build it, he will come." And Ray is compelled to do something dramatically different by building a baseball field in his corn, which will alter the course of his life forever. I did not hear a magical voice, but in 1994, 5 years after I first viewed Field of Dreams, I saw magical words printed in a Nike ad on the back of a Sports Illustrated. The words were accompanied by a vision of a great ball player, Nolan Ryan, and they did not say, "If you build it, he will come," but rather, "The only one who can tell you you can't is you, and you don't have to listen." When I saw those words, I had hit the bottom in my life, so I picked up the phone and I called for help. I quit drinking, and I've been sober ever since. Most people know that part of the story. Not too many people know that the piercing eyes of a 44-year-old Cy Young winner inspired me to try something as dramatically different as sobriety. So began my journey, which culminated in my reconnecting with my father over baseball. And likewise, baseball helps Ray Kinsella reconnect with his father as well. This was the main parallel with my life when I saw Field of Dreams, but there were others. One of the people Ray meets on his journey is Moonlight Graham, played by Burt Lancaster, a small-town doctor who once played half an inning in the majors before leaving the game and going back to medical school. Moonlight Graham is kind and wise and perceptive. And do you think it's a coincidence that he resembles somebody else I know? Here's another weird coincidence. In Field of Dreams, Ray travels halfway across the country to Boston, where he meets Terrence Mann, a brilliant writer who becomes Ray's mentor and confidant. In my own life, roughly 10 years after I saw Field of Dreams, I traveled halfway across the country to Los Angeles, where I met Frank Jenkins, a brilliant writer who would become my mentor and confidant. How weird is this resemblance? Finally, there's Ray's wife Annie, strong and unafraid to express herself. The chemistry between Kevin Costner and Amy Madigan makes you believe that Ray and Annie are best friends. When I was alone, I wanted a woman like Annie. Someone strong, unafraid to express herself, someone who would become my best friend. Turns out she was in attendance at the first baseball game I ever watched. These are just a few of my connections to Field of Dreams, but my personal story doesn't really explain what it is about the movie that has such universal appeal for so many men. I am reminded of the lament of a great Italian poet in the early 1970s as he mourned the passing of reverence. He believed men no longer had that profound sense of awe and respect for anything, be it life, art, God, or even themselves. Perhaps Field of Dreams is special because it is about that sense of awe for life, for family, for friends, for our past, even for a silly little game that marks the rhythms of a lazy afternoon. But really, Field of Dreams is not about baseball. Baseball is just a catalyst for people to come together and find common ground, because it is on common ground that miracles happen. Rather, Field of Dreams is about faith, about trusting that inner voice that tells us to create something totally illogical. If you build it, he will come is more than a movie quote. For me, it's the summation of a belief system. Every day we have the opportunity to build something, not just physically, but spiritually. You can build a better relationship with your spouse, build a new friendship with a stranger, or build a life of sobriety defined by giving inspiration rather than frailty. And if you build it, he, the God of your understanding, will come, manifesting himself in a multitude of blessings you never knew you could have. Field of Dreams is more than a movie. It's a great parable of my generation. And like any good parable, it's really the story of our lives.